That warm June morning was a morning of adventure, a morning of curiosity, a morning of learning. Kootzie woke up probably about 5 o'clock. The sun was coming up, and she was anxious to get up and get moving. So she decided that she would make it a special day by going into her closet and pulling out something really interesting to wear. Well, her grandmother had sent her a hula skirt from California. So she thought the hula skirt would be a really nice thing to put on that morning. And then she picked out her favorite red silk blouse with white polka dots, and that was the blouse that she wore with the hula skirt. She crept down the stairway very quietly so that her parents and her sisters and brothers wouldn't hear her. She made sure that she didn't hit any of the creaky steps. She walked slowly across the kitchen floor and opened the screen door just wide enough to let herself out into the fresh June air. She could smell the roses next to the stoop. She saw the hollyhocks waving in the breeze. They were up against the fence that she would have to crawl over to get over into Homer's yard to get to the chickens. So she had a little trouble navigating the fence. The skirt kind of got in the way, so she kind of hitched it up and get over the fence. She jumped down to the other side and felt the nice, cool dew on the grass as she walked barefoot over to the chicken coop. Putting her fingers through the mesh of the chicken coop, she looked at the chickens and started thinking about their life. Those chickens, poor things, they never got out of that coop. There were red hens, there were gold hens, there were white hens, and there was an old rooster who didn't like to be in the coop with the hens and the little yellow chicks. He liked to hang out in the barn where it was dim, dark, and quiet. She looked and looked at the chickens and she thought, wouldn't it be a nice thing if they were allowed to come out and play a little bit in the grass? And she thought about that for a while, and then she thought about the pigeons that were cooing up in the loft of the barn. They were homing pigeons that Stevie and Pheasant Owner raised and trained to fly away from home and to come back. She thought, well, those pigeons, they let them out on Saturday morning and they flap their wings and they fly up into the sky until they're just little specks and you can't see them, but they come back, they come home. And as her reasoning went, she thought, well, chickens don't fly very well. They can fly a little bit, but not very well. So they would probably want to stay in the yard. Just as she was about to go over to unlock the door of the coop to let the chickens out to play, she heard a voice calling from next door. Kootzie, Kootzie, where are you? Come home right now. It was her mother. She ran to the fence, negotiated the fence back, and came into the kitchen. And her mother looked at her again and said, Kootzie, you look like you're dressed for Halloween. She said, where did you ever come up with the idea of wearing that out to play? That is a costume that should be put back in the closet and not taken out till next October. Secondly, you shouldn't be getting up so early in the morning. And thirdly, you should not be going by yourself over to Fulmer's coop. And Kootzie said, but Mama, she told me I could anytime I wanted to. Well, her mother said, from now on, it's when I tell you you can go. So for about 2 weeks, she worked very hard to listen to her mother and do what she was told. But the desire to get back to see those chickens and to try letting them out to play was overwhelming. So one morning, she got up again, this time dressing in her play clothes, negotiated the fence, ran across to the chicken coop, looked in, and went over and opened the door of the coop. Chickens didn't do anything right away, but then all of a sudden there was this rush of chickens running out of the coop, and the little chicks coming out behind them didn't know where they were going or what they were doing or what was happening. The rooster even came out of the barn, and when he saw the door was open, he ran too on his little skinny chicken legs, and he kind of flew a little bit, trying to get away. The hens and the rooster were all over. They were in Andert's garden, they were in the hedges at Weiss's house, they were in Mrs. Wallish's garden. For some reason they didn't go to my house, but they were in all of the neighbors' houses. Mrs. Fulmer came up. Kootzie, did you let my chickens out? Yes, I did, she said. Well, then you must help me find them and bring them back. You take care of the chicks in the yard, I'll go get the big chickens. Took about an hour, but the job was done. Then she took me over to the stoop and she said, now Kootzie, she said, why did you do that? Well, because I thought it was a nice thing and that the chickens would like to play. And she said, Kootzie, I thought she said, Kootzie told her too that she thought that the chickens would come back and want to get back in the coop. She said, Kootzie, I leave them. Chickens are dumb. They don't know any better. They see the open door, they run out. Then when they get out, they don't know what to do. They don't know where to go. They're scared. And so that's what we were facing. Now, Kootzie, I want you to promise me you'll never do that again. I won't, Mrs. Fulmer, she said. I promise. That was the end of Kootzie's experiment in chicken breeding. She went home. She did always go back to see the chickens, but always in the cage. And the lessons that she took that day and the memories have lasted for many, many years, and they've metamorphosed into grown-up lessons. Number one, it's not a good idea to think that you can do something for someone that's better than what they can do for themselves, whether it's a chicken or a person. Number two, getting to know chickens made a lifelong interest in birds for Kootzie as an adult, chickens being at the top of the list. Number three, you can never give too much love to a child. Now you probably know by now that that little girl, Kootzie, was me. And that I learned life lessons in that experience with the chickens.